next panel discussion, Maintaining EV Momentum, presented by Electrical Vehicle Association.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Elaine Borsett. I'm the president of the Electric Vehicle Association, or the EVA, and I'm really happy to be joined by some esteemed panelists today. We're going to talk about maintaining EV momentum. Over the last 3 years, we've seen record-breaking EV sales year over year, including we're now at an 8% total EV sales for 2024. We've had dozens of new models hit the market. We know that auto companies have already invested tens of billions of dollars into EVs as we're looking forward to seeing the production of affordable EVs and widely available EVs for 2025. We know, especially at the EV Association, we are an organization that has 100 chapters across the country, that our sole mission is to educate and advocate for the rapid adoption of EVs. We know firsthand, and studies are now bearing out, that once consumers find out the true facts about electric vehicles, they're on board. They want one. It's just a better way to go. The 2024 election opened up a new era that politicized EVs. At the EV Association, we're trying to just focus on educating people about the benefits of EVs. So whether it's a couple of our members at a farmer's market with their vehicles talking one-on-one with people, or they're at the auto show doing ride and drives, or they're in Dayton, Ohio with 50 members and 50 EVs on sale, on display for EVs out at the ball game. We're out and about around the country trying to talk to people about EVs. Today, we want to talk about how the automotive industry should be navigating a new federal administration to ensure that we're listening to consumers and that we continue to drive momentum forward for electric vehicles. So I'd like to invite my panelists on stage at this time, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. Thank you. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Stanton. I'm with the National Automobile Dealers Association, President and CEO. We represent almost 17,000 franchise automobile dealerships in the United States. We also have a division, the American Truck Dealers, where we represent heavy-duty truck dealers as well. More importantly, I'm an avid Washington Commanders fan. To all you Detroit Lions fans out there, predict a big win this coming Saturday.
Thank you. Gil?
Hi, I'm Gil Tal. I'm a professor at the University of California, Davis, and the director of the Electric Vehicle Research Center over there. I'm working on electric transportation for the last 16 years, from the time it was a dream to the time that we said every car on the road and back to something in the middle. Working with the government in the US, globally, car companies, and everyone in between. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you so much, Gil. Catherine.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Catherine Garcia from Sierra Club. I lead the Clean Transportation for All campaign. Sierra Club is the oldest grassroots organization in the United States, and we focus on making sure that there are clean energy projects and clean transportation projects. In terms of my team, we work closely with policymakers and advocates to make sure that everyone can get around in an equitable and sustainable way. And we don't just focus on cars. Our portfolio is a little bit broader. We also work on aviation, passenger rail, freight rail, and making sure cars, trucks, and buses are cleaner, and even make sure that it's safer to take biking, and that there's frequent transit. And just so glad to see the people mover running again, especially given the frigid cold right now. I'm also from Washington, D.C., and really excited about the People Mover.
Great. Thank you, and welcome to all of you. Thank you to our guests. So, Gil, I'd like to start with you to help set the scene. Over the last 4 years, we've seen federal and state governments direct investments towards speeding up the transition to EVs, and since 2021, consumer EV sales have grown significantly. What investments do you think have encouraged the most progress in getting consumers on board?
In the last 4 years, it's become clear that EVs are here for the main market. It takes time, but everyone seeing them today and more and more people buying them. The main thing is that there is much more supply. You go to a dealership and you can actually pick the car you like much more than any time before. The color you like, the size you like. The way to make it is to stock the shelves. And that's what the federal government was helping with, stocking the shelves. Helping with investment in the battery infrastructure, in building the car, in putting the incentives we need, and all the, not all, but much of the infrastructure we need. When you buy a car on the East Coast, you want to know that you can drive it to the West Coast. You will never do it, but you want to know that you can. And having the infrastructure there is a really important part of what the government is doing. I have to say that electric vehicles are something that we need to make a big upfront investment. And we as human beings, we as society are not really good at saving later by making this big upfront investment first. So the investment of the government, the federal, the state, globally, is this main factor that helps us invest now in order to save later. Save on money, save on environment, and everything else.
Great, thank you. Mike, as EVs become more popular, how have dealers been helping consumers make the transition, and what resources do dealerships have for educating potential buyers?
Yeah, thanks. I build on what Gil just said about investment. A lot of this, you have to create the right conditions for consumers to experience an EV, to service an EV, and dealers have stepped up to the plate and made collectively over $5 billion worth of investments to get their sales and service facilities ready to promote EVs. So you've got, think about charging infrastructure, you've got to reinforce your lifts in the bay, you've got to provide training to your technicians. There's a whole lot of safety implications involved. And then the actual inventory itself. Dealers have over $7 billion worth of inventory sitting on their lots right now for consumers to come and experience. And keep in mind, dealers buy the cars from the manufacturers. They don't have those on loan. So the dealers have already committed to put those cars on their lots for consumers to experience. And then, of course, the training that comes involved with that. And NADA has worked with the Center for Sustained Energy. Our OEMs have provided some training. I think one of the most practical things and success stories I've seen is that dealers actually let their salespeople take the vehicles home and live in them, not live in them literally, but keep them for weeks on end so they can understand how they work, and the pluses, the minuses, so they can share that with consumers. And dealers have gotten super creative. They'll sell anything to anybody. One of the success stories I've heard is actually putting the home charging equipment, you bundle that at the time of sale. When the consumer comes in to get their vehicle serviced, send them out on a test drive rather than wait in the service area. Send them out on a test drive on an EV, or if they have to go home at night, let them experience the car, because increasingly consumers, if you get in the vehicle, they are incredible. And as Gil said, with regard to stock, we've been waiting for our car companies to build this product. It is excellent. It's not right for everybody, but it is right for about 8% of the market right now, and it has grown, and we have seen some dealers really embrace it.
Great, thank you. Catherine, in your work at the Sierra Club, you're focused on protecting the environment, and because the transportation industry is the single largest U.S. source of greenhouse gas emissions, EVs play a huge role. how important is the environment to people who are looking to buy an electric vehicle? And what messages have you found work most effectively to convince someone who's considering transitioning from gas to electric?
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. So one of the things that I'll just start out by saying is that we actually have a limited amount of time to reduce carbon emissions. And as Elaine said, the transportation sector broadly is the largest source of climate emissions. And so what that means is that by burning coal and oil and continuing this ecosystem around fossil fuels, we're seeing more extreme climate events. And I have personally had colleagues that have been affected by, in the last couple of years, flooding in Montpelier, Vermont, by Hurricane Helene in Asheville, North Carolina, and just recently in Southern California from the devastating fires. And so we know that there's limited amount of time, and that's why many people are getting into EVs if they care about the environment. And I will say that is one of the starting points for early adopters, especially folks that maybe are more interested in buying new cars and perhaps want to have the latest technology in the automotive industry. But just recently, we have started seeing more of a secondary market. And what's really important for folks that are buying used cars is making sure that they're affordable, that it fits their needs, more for the long term. And so in terms of making it easier for people to get into electric vehicles, we want to make sure that the charging infrastructure is there. And that's something that Sierra Club and our partners are really making sure that there's investment there. In terms of other reasons, perhaps for the later adopters, we're seeing making sure that there's cost savings. So if you have an EV, you're actually saving thousands of dollars worth in fuel costs. There's making sure that there's convenience. You're actually just plugging in the car at your home instead of going to the gas station and waking up and your car is charged. And then also making sure that we are getting people into these cars so that they can talk to people. One of the exciting things that Sierra Club does is we host events called Drive Electric Earth Month, where people can talk to their neighbors and community members about driving EVs and what their charging experience is like. And so from all of those reasons, we're actually seeing more adoption for EVs.
Great, thank you, Catherine. So turning now to how the auto industry and OEMs in particular have evolved to push forward the EV transition. So Gil, we've heard a lot from OEMs this year about how car companies are following consumer lead, but it's the car companies that create consumer demand. Based on your research, what should OEMs know about how the EV market is growing and where they should focus their efforts in the years ahead?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I will start by saying that the car companies got a really tough task because they need to invest billions of dollars in order to sell more or less the same amount on the same type of product that they were selling for many, many years. Selling electric cars instead of gas cars after investing billions of dollars. So it's very clear that most of the car companies had probably, we can say even a bipolar personality when it's come to electric cars. That's the future, it's a great product, but I can sell gas cars very well. But if we need to, we can make it happen. And we see all of these huge investments are coming, and we see great products. But most of the Americans, most of the new car buyers globally did not consider EVs yet. We are a creature of habits. If we don't need to think about something else, something new, we will not do it. So the main way to do it is to stock the shelves, to have these cars in many different sizes, many different types. The most efficient vehicle in the US today actually is not small sedans, it's the crossovers, the car SUVs version. And that's because these are the easiest one to electrify. They are a little bit taller, you have a room for a battery, you can sell them. The consumers like these vehicles, the crossovers. And you can see how this market is growing fast. It's not just these huge SUVs that we see here. Some people really want them and they should buy whatever they like, but most of us can get really nice 2 and 3 rows electric cars, and the car companies need to keep developing these markets, keep pushing for electrifying them. And I will add one more thing, there are also plug-in hybrids in the mix. And plug-in hybrids can be a great solution for someone who is not willing to go all the way in, that would like to drive on electric, would like to save on gas, would like to reduce their footprint, their climate footprint, but not willing to go all the way in. We just need to make sure that these cars are being plugged in. Just selling them, it's half the story, plug them in, it's the other half. And if we and the car companies can make sure that they plug them in, it's a great part of the solution.
Great, thank you. So Mike, how have car companies been working with dealerships to promote new EVs on the lot? And if there's a company that's been doing it particularly well, what tactics are they using and what has the consumer response been?
Yeah, thanks. So I agree, car companies create demand. Dealers also create demand, but so does the federal government. The infrastructure is just not there yet for most consumers. So it's not just the car company. We've got to all work together to get there. And the issue right now, and we're seeing nice growth, the main issue is with these federal mandates and the states that are part of the California waiver. The goals are simply not attainable. There is no way we're going to get there in the next couple of years. And with that comes all kinds of bad behavior that's going to happen, and ultimately it's going to be the consumer that is going to pay the price. But we'll talk more about that later. In terms of car companies, the ones that are doing it the best are the ones that have taken a somewhat moderated approach. Let's grow with the customer. Let's work with our dealers. Let's not be heavy-handed up front. We're investing this, you must invest this, that, or the other. No matter if you're a dealer in Washington, D.C. or right outside of the D.C. area or somewhere in South Dakota. It's the car companies that have taken a reasonable approach. And the two that come to mind, and we've got a lot of issues right now with VW and what they're doing with the Scout brand, but the VW team has done a great job working with their dealers in terms of supporting them in making the investments necessary to sell and service electric vehicles. General Motors has also done a nice job working with their dealers, and no surprise, those are the two companies that are doing very well selling in the marketplace right now. Again, there's this theme, it's about a great product and a great experience. The car companies that are working well with their dealers are the ones that are winning in the marketplace right now.
Great, thank you. So Catherine, most of the big OEMs have already made huge investments in EVs, making a big impact on growing our country's clean energy economy. Where have you seen the most growth over the past 4 years, and how can OEMs continue to invest?
Yeah, so we have seen, because of the increasing standards over the last 4 years and also the investment in infrastructure, we have seen manufacturers responding by pouring in about $200 billion worth of private investments. And we're seeing new manufacturing plants for both EVs and battery manufacturing. And these primarily have been in the top 5 states are Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and Nevada. And so what we're seeing here is a pouring in of investment, making sure that we are onshoring these jobs. And thanks to the UAW negotiations that took place last year that Sierra Club and many of our environmental partners supported, we're seeing that those battery manufacturing jobs are creating good family-sustaining jobs. And that's super important to make sure that we are investing in jobs here in the United States. To Mike's point about the charging infrastructure, the majority of EVs and plug-in hybrids are being plugged in at the driver's home. And one statistic there is that about 2/3 of the homes in the United States actually do have a carport or driveway. And so one thing that the manufacturers can be doing is making it easier to get charging at home. And I want to highlight one of the things that Ford is doing. They have this new program called Power Promise. And with that, you actually have a level 2 charger put into your home, and they cover the cost of the charger and the installation. And I think programs like that really do help move the needle in terms of getting folks into EVs. And it does, on the other hand, introduce a bit of an equity issue, because for people who don't live in a home that they own, or in more of like a condo or an apartment where they may not have a driveway, it will be harder for them to charge. And so that's why we do want to make sure that there is accessible charging across the country. In terms of like GM, they are investing in public charging in really good programs with partnerships with EVgo and ChargePoint. So there's a variety of different solutions that we're seeing, and we just need to, in terms of Sierra Club, we are advocating for more of this across the country and supporting our partners.
Great, thank you. So Gil, right now is such an interesting moment to be having this conversation, because the new federal administration coming into office just next week, they've been forthcoming about stripping back the EV tax credits. And what impact do you think that this will have on EV adoption, and how will it impact US automaker dominance?
It's really hard to say what is going to happen in the next couple of months. If anyone can tell me that they know what will happen, I don't know. On one hand, President-elect Trump said that EVs are almost evil. On the other hand, Elon Musk is there. And a lot of the investment in EV manufacturing and batteries are in red states. A lot of the money going from the federal government to infrastructure is going to all of the states, and I don't see a lot of appetite to stop this change. So I think that there is a lot of momentum out there for EVs to keep growing, and I hope that the momentum is going to stay. I know that we will see some changes. I will know that the changes will make it harder to sell EVs in the US, and I'm worried that our industry is going to stay behind again. Every time we were trying to block a change, we were losing market share globally. And if we will not stay on top of it, we will lose market share to the Chinese, we will lose market share to the Europeans, and any other country around the world that will be the first and will move forward faster. We need to keep supporting this change, because it's not happening only in the US, and we are not the leaders anymore. And if our industry will try to protect us from change, we will stay behind. It's absolutely clear. I was in Mexico a couple of months ago, and I was surprised of how many electric Chinese cars are out there. You travel to Europe and you see how new companies build production lines in Hungary, in Poland, in other countries for Chinese EVs. You travel to India, you see new manufacturing. Vietnam have new manufacturing. All of these are going to change with or without the American industry. So in order to stay on top of it, I think we need to keep investing in electrification. I will say that that's the global picture, but also we need to make sure that we can still sell them in the US. I don't think personally that the California regulation are higher than what we should have in the next couple of years. We are aiming to 80% full electric by 2035. Maybe that's a little bit too high, and we will have to, in 2032, kind of adjust it. But I think that in the next couple of years, without it, we will not have the ability to choose what car we want. This regulation creates the ability for an American to go to the dealership and to choose if they want to drive electric or to drive a gas car. And without it, we will probably have to settle for a gas car in the next couple of years.
Great, thank you. So Mike, what policies are dealers supportive of, and what are you hoping carries over for the next 4 years?
I mentioned the investments that dealers have made. And EV market share is growing about 8% right now. Electrification is not going away. Dealers are excited about selling cars, those types of vehicles. What we're not excited about is being told what to sell, because we meet with thousands of consumers every day, NADA has been steadfast in our commitment that we think that the mandates are going too far, too fast. We've been advocates for one national standard. Happy to tell a story about that later. We see a train wreck that's coming, a train wreck that's not going to be good for our industry, the dealers we represent, our manufacturers, even gets down to national security. Gil mentioned the Chinese. I was in China a couple of months ago. Dealers are very concerned that if the Chinese come to this market, it will be bad for our industry, it will be bad for our country from a national security standpoint, it'll be bad for consumers from a data privacy standpoint. The Chinese market is not an apples to apples comparison to what's happening here with electric vehicles. The Chinese market is heavily subsidized by the Chinese government, and we've always been advocates of a level playing field. If the Chinese were to compete over here, that would create an unlevel playing field, one that we hope the Trump administration will continue to block those entrants until our manufacturers have a chance to catch up, and we'll have to see what happens. I mean, we look at this the Biden administration and this stretch goal, these mandates, EVs, I mentioned too far, too fast. We've got to look at where the customer is today. Yes, EV sales are up 8%, overall sales are up 2%, hybrid sales are up 36%. Consumers are getting there. Our manufacturers, the government, from an infrastructure standpoint, we need time to catch up. So the NADA is supportive of wiping out the federal mandates, and we're also supportive of anything that would disapprove the CARB waiver. Now that's probably going to make me about as popular on this station, on this stage, as being a Washington Commanders fan. But you asked the question, Elaine, that's where we are.
Thanks, Mike. So Catherine, if the incoming administration rolls back environmental standards for the auto industry, what impact will this have globally on environmental targets?
Yeah, so my colleagues up here just spoke about what these rollbacks would do towards our global competitiveness. Essentially, what I want to talk about is what I spoke about at the top, which was we have a very short period of time to curb our transportation emissions. But it's a little bit broader than that, because what we're seeing in terms of the federal administration's standards, the light-duty standards, these are long-term standards, and we would argue that they are feasible, particularly because you can meet the threshold with plug-in hybrids, and many manufacturers are producing more plug-in hybrids to get the consumer more interested and excited about this new technology. It's a bit of a bridge technology before you go all the way to electric vehicles. And so one thing to consider is, we do need to make sure that the supply chain catches up. We need to make sure that the charging infrastructure catches up. And so when the Biden administration was putting forward the proposed standards, they did meet with the OEMs, and they did temper back and create more of an incremental pace during the years of 27, 28, and 29. And so our view is that by the time we get into 2029, 2030, we will have the infrastructure that we need. And so for that reason, we are arguing that we should not roll back any of the federal standards. They are not actually a mandate for electric vehicles because they do introduce consumer choice. But given the reality of the politics that we're seeing, we do want to stress that there are state policies that we can advocate for to make sure that we are not missing our climate goals. And many states across the country are putting in exciting policies like fleet requirements on municipal vehicles, and then those municipalities actually get the cost savings from driving an electric vehicle. And one thing I'll just pitch is that we're actually releasing a report tomorrow, and in terms of a sneak peek to our report that talks about all of these state policies, the URL is actually sc.org/achieve. And these are two specific guides that essentially help with EV adoption, talking about what state policies could be put in place and model policies that we want to tout, both for expanding EV charging and also making EVs more equitable.
Great, thank you. All right, well, in closing, with lots of change coming for 2025, I'll ask each of you, which metrics are you watching to understand if we're continuing to maintain and build EV momentum? And Mike, we'll start with you.
I want to always keep an eye on the product. We got to have the best product in the world. Keep an eye on affordability. Are we able to drive prices down to where we're close to on par with ICE vehicles? Consumers don't like paying more for something that's less convenient for them. We're going to have to watch the residual values. In our industry, that's very important. There's a $7,500 lease credit right now. You can go out and lease a Fiat for $0 a month. You can lease an ID4 for $149 a month, $999 down. At some point, the lessor is going to pay the price when those vehicles come back off lease 3 years from now. We need a profitable industry. Again, this is not like China. China, the focus is on jobs and GDP. If we don't have profitable manufacturers and profitable dealers, we're not going to have consumers that are going to be able to transact in a way that they have become accustomed to. So we're going to have to look for all of that. We're also going to have to continue to engage with the government and with other folks like the people on this stage to try and find what I view is a common sense solution. I think we've moved way too far, too fast, and we don't want to see us whipsaw way back to zero. We've got to continue to provide incremental benefit there. But we also have to stop looking at EV, and you all mentioned hybrids. We have to stop looking at full electric as the only way to go. We have to think about fleet turnover. What we haven't talked about on this stage is the older cars that are on the road, right? There should be a mix of technologies. It's going to be BEV. ICE vehicles they're burning cleaner than they've ever burned. So there's the opportunity to continue to improve ICE. There's hybrid, there's EVs, there's technologies that we're not talking about on this stage, that we're not thinking about, that nobody's discovered yet, that will help us ultimately get better and better. But we need an incremental path, not this draconian path that is going to create a situation where our manufacturers are going to stop, or they're going to build fewer ICE vehicles because they're going to have to hit EV mandates. And what that's going to do to the consumer is it's going to drive up the price of used ICE cars, it's going to drive up the price of new ICE vehicles, and EVs are not for everyone yet because of the conditions that we've set forth. And if we don't continue to turn that fleet over, consumers, they ultimately hold the card. They have the ability to hold their car longer. They can keep getting it fixed at their dealership. That's good for us, but that's bad for the environment. So we need to create conditions that the consumer wants to buy cleaner and cleaner vehicles. And to me, that's a mix. And we got to stop with this one size fits all, and there's cute ways around it with hybrids and credits and all this stuff, because none of that makes sense to a consumer. A consumer needs to understand, they demand a transparent process. So that's my last point, and then I'll shut up on this rant. The $7,500 tax credit is key, okay? Some companies, over 80% of the vehicles that they're selling, EVs right now, are being leased. That's a huge number. If that gets pulled out from under the automakers and dealers, we're going to be in a situation where EVs are going to literally come to a halt. All right, so what we have fed, I don't think there's much appetite with the administration and what we're hearing on Capitol Hill to continue that credit long term. What the NADA has advocated for is a ramp, a phase out, something that we can count on so that we can be transparent with consumers, let them know that this is going to adjust to X, it's going to go away on such and such date, so that we don't lose credibility with consumers. Because that's what happens a lot of times. You get manufacturer programs, now we get the government involved in what we sell. Consumers don't understand that when they go buy a car. So I guess that was a bit of a rant, but we'll be looking for all of those things.
Great, thank you very much. And Gil.
I will build on what Mike was saying here, that we need certainty. And I really hope that there will be no changes, no turning on a dime here in the next year, because the car companies need this long-term certainty on the investment and on the sales. And the consumers are there. My university, we surveyed 25,000 EV owners in the US recently, and 90% will buy EVs again and are happy with what they did. So once they are doing it, they are there and they are happy with what they did. So we just need to figure out how we make it more, how we sell more, how we allow people to choose, as you said, the right price, the right vehicle. We're not going to take a gas car from anyone's hands. People will be able to drive them as long as they like, as many years as they like. And there is not in California, anywhere else, there is any mandate that said that you are not allowed to drive a gas car or to buy a gas car in the next couple of years. So this balance is really, really important, but it has to be a balance that also add our environmental goals, our cost goals, moving forward with having a more efficient transportation system as society and as individuals. So I really hope that the sales, and I believe that in 2025 we will see higher sales of EVs than we have seen in 2024, just because the market is already there, but I sure hope that we will see the same growth in the next couple of years.
Great, thank you so much. Catherine?
Yeah, so just being here at the Detroit Auto Show, it's been so exciting to see all of the new EVs on the showroom. I invite you all to go see them ride in the test drives and the cool tracks that they have up there. We are really seeing a lot more new models, so it'll be exciting to see in the next few years what else comes about, making sure that there's increased investment in U.S. manufacturing is super important. We're tracking that very closely, as well as the investments in charging infrastructure. The state funds have just been going out, and contracts are in place, and we're seeing more and more public charging. But that is a key thing that we're looking at. Also, just to plug the Sierra Club, we have an excellent chapter here in Michigan. They're working on all aspects of transportation, including EVs, EV charging, and public transit. So I encourage you to talk to those folks. And if you're traveling from other states, we have Sierra Club chapters across the country. And I'd be happy to chat with folks after the panel.
Great, thank you so much. And as far as I'm concerned with the EV Association, we're just going to continue doing what we do, which is to educate and advocate. Personally, I've driven electric for 10 years. I've driven cross country probably 8 different times now since 2015. I love waking up with a full charge every morning. It's nice not having to go wait in the Costco gas line once a week to get gas. I just wake up, I'm ready to go, I can fuel at home. It's just really a great experience. And again, what we found is that when consumers find out the true facts about electric vehicles, they're all on board, and the performance can't be beat. That's what sold me. My first test drive in an EV was I was blown away. So we're just gonna keep educating and advocating, and we're looking forward to seeing more states like Colorado had their largest, in Q3, they had over 25% of new car sales were electric vehicles. So we're hoping to see more and more of that in the years to come. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we have just a few minutes to open it up if anybody has any questions. Any questions? I think we did an awesome job handling everything. Thanks again for joining us.